Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a slightly delayed half the race gone broadcast here from the Nukeshot Endurance Series. Once more, we are at the 8th round of the championship. We are for the second running week at Interlagos, and that means that we'll have the LMP AM split running alongside the GT3 Pro split on track today. And it's going to be a decisive one in the GT3 Pro split, at least, of course, in the LMP AM class. Nilsman is very close to having secured his championship win there. And in the, as I mentioned before, it's somewhat closer in the GT3 Pro standings. I'm just trying to look up the drivers' standings. There they are. So it's Joe of the Fire with 130 points in front of reigning champion Stevie. He has 127 points. And then CJ pretty closely in behind, but a little way back though with 110 points. Then Trials with 73 points, Armored Core with 62. Then it's myself, DirtenDK with 59 points, Wake CU with 46, Sparks 360 with 29 points, and then Tetsuka Bura with 12 points at the end of standings at the moment. Anyways, let's get out of the picture here and into the replay. And I can break it already that we have a little bit of a low attending race once more in the NES. So hopefully we'll have some action for you anyways, even though we have had the tendency that the races with the lower participations has also been a little bit dull at times. At least last time out through the middle sector of the race wasn't the most interesting, but then it did come all together at the end. So mind you that we might just be in for a really interesting show. Anyways, time to hit the pause button. It is, of course, time to do our regular grid walk. Shout out to Charlie Roscoe for inspiring me to do this. I feel like I have to mention sure that he is looking someday, and it's like, oh, that's my grid walk. Anyways, it is kind of amazingly off Apple Nukeshot Motorsports' first pole position of the year, and it is off Apple Series Organizer in the R10 or R18, of course, TDI, the non-hybrid, as you see there. So very good job setting pole position in front of regular pole setter. I was about to say Nilsman, who's today shown into second position on the grid there. Mika in the R18 hybrid, also of the Rotterdam Performance Nukeshot team, in third position, as mentioned before, and then Ninja Karma. So that makes off. That's actually it for the LMP. So only 4 LMP AM cars on the track today. But anyways, we do have somewhat of a bigger GT Pro field, and it is with the Mad Greek. That is CJ. Rest in peace, the Wasp Designs. Now we have something that looks like a Sarumo livery, pretty much, a little bit, and it's public. It says. Anyways, CJ now in the Toyota FT1, and he's on pole position in front of reigning champion Stevie in the just the two of us racing Aston Martin there, number one. Of course, one of the contenders for the championship once more. In third position, it is Joe of the Fire, Master La Vista, the car number 27, leading still in the championships. And then in fourth position, myself, DirtenDK, in the number 18 Master. Then it is Armored Core right behind there in the number 12 Vert Sliders FT1. Then it's Wake CU in the PlayStation Mercedes. And then it is, of course, Sparks in the Z4 with the number 13. And that, of course, concludes the grid walk. And that also means that it is time to get the drivers underway with the formation lap, just making sure we have everything correctly positioned. And a very, very big hello and a warm welcome to all of you watching. Hello to all of you all of you, that's basically just Nilse, and our very, very trusty moderator of Apple, the pole setter today. Indeed, who has made themselves known in chat. Of course, we don't discourage lurkers. If you feel like lurking, lurk all you want. It is all fine by us. Even though it is, of course, also very entertaining to have that chat going on. So we're watching the LMP drivers at the moment. As I mentioned before, off Apple there, setting the pole time very late in the qualifying session, all towards the end. Nilsson didn't really have the time to respond. And as a result, off Apple on pole position today. Very, very good job, I must say. Not really a car you would expect to be super strong. Not even around a single lap here at Interlagos. You would expect the four-wheel drive Mazda to really have an advantage there. It's of course Zephyr in the set 4. I do apologize for my mistake there before. It's because we raced in a lobby with Sparks earlier today. So, but of course. It is, of course, Zephyr. Zephyr, a known face from the TSR Multi-GT series, where he's been taking part in the GT 500s. Now he is here, driving in the Nukeshot Endurance series in the Pro field, as his pace would suggest that he should. And put the car in last. Maybe some adjustments needing to get used to the BMW set 4, but anyway, of course, thank to Nilsson for correcting me on that one. So as I mentioned before, also as you can see here, only 4 LMPs on the grid, and that's almost realistic from at least from a couple of years ago for 2 cars or 2 teams with 2 cars each. That is that is maybe a little too realistic for what we like. Would love to see more cars, of course. There is open for reserve subscription, so do go on GTPlanet and find the thread if you're looking and figuring that, hey, I'd like to race in this series. Anyways, we have the drivers nearing the pit lane entrance, and that of course means that it is the decision of off Apple now when to go full gas, when to go full throttle, and when they pass the pit wall, they will be allowed to overtake, or of course the line, and there is the line, so that's very late. And that's off Apple trying to hold them off for as long as possible to hold off the hybrid drive of Mika. They're taking 2nd position. So a strong start from the Audis. Nilsson down into 3rd, and Ninja Karma running a little bit wide as we go on board here with off Apple. Oh, and there was Ninja Man. Oh, Ninja Man, that's Ninja Karma, of course, running way wide once more. And Mika, we have a wide running fest, it seems. And we also have the GTs getting underway. And it is, of course, CJ holding out there. And there's a big piece of contact there between Stevie and CJ. And Joe of the Fire also getting hit, I think, in the back. So there was some kind of contact coming in from behind there. And I think several of the drivers at this point might be driving around with damage. So it's just a question, is it bad enough that those top drivers will actually have to pit? It's CJ now battling Stevie down towards turn 4. And he has the inside line, so we will be able to vent maybe a cutback from Stevie. Nope. A brilliant exit there, it seems, from CJ. Joe of the Fire in 3rd with Armored Core up in 4th position, and Wake, see you having overtaken myself, DirtenDK, who is in turn down in 10th in front of Zephyr, or 10th. That of course is 5th in class. Still off Apple now, closely accompanied by Nilsson, who's gotten his way past Mika there. Probably did that in turn 4 as Mika went quite wide before on the opening lap. Holding out well here, it seems, the Brit. And let's go have a look with the GT3s. It is now Armored Core. He's made his way up into 4th position. So he's gone up a single position from his starting. And same goes for Wake, and in turn I have fallen down 2 positions. And a very good evening to CJ, of course, also. So if we were to drop the checkered flag right now, it would in turn open the door really in the championship battle here for the drivers. As CJ is not far behind the 2 leaders here. So we have Armored Core trying to pull off a move on Joe of the Fire. He has the inside line into turn 4. The two are very close there. Joe manages to squeeze by on the outside, still side by side. I think it's going to be advantage Joe of the Fire here, coming into the double right-handers of these two corners, and it certainly is. Now we're going to check back with the LMP leaders. Off Apple looking great there. Nilseman all over his back though, so he definitely won't have an easy time. Mika in third with Ninja Karma fourth, and both of those two are a little bit away behind. Still a very compact GT3 field, as we are just gonna have an onboard view, a backwards onboard view, of course it is, with Mr. Crazy John. You can just see that string of GT3 cars. Now a little bit of a gap having opened up between Stevie and Joe of the Fire. Joe of the Fire, I think he might be suffering a little bit from that turn 1 damage. Now Armored Core is gonna make his way past, it looks, behind. Let's go have a look at that. And at the moment it is also Wake CU trying to pull a move. And he in turn also gets by Joe of the Fire. So a bad turn there for Joe of the Fire. The Witty Professor losing out on 2 positions in just the space of seconds indeed. Now it's Armored Core really having to defend in turn from Wake CU. Wake CU with the outside line. Shows in turn to be possible before that. Wake going a little bit too wide onto the AstroTurf of Death. And really has to tread lightly. Now we have 4 cars very, very close with the 2 Attensors. And then it's Wake and Armored Core, of course. Wake the Belgian there, just nudging his way past. And now I get the run and turn on Armored Core as well. But I think just getting shut out on the outside there. Well defended from Armored Core. Now Wake, very strong driving from him in this particular situation here. Really making the most of the situation. Out in front, it's settling down for both CJ and Stevie, it seems. I try not to say that, it just comes out of my mouth, CJ. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. I'm very much aware of it, and I'm fighting, I'm struggling not to say the the banned word. Let's ban the word. We're banning it. It's now banned. I'm not gonna say it anymore because it is a word most of the time you could actually do without. But anyways, CJ, a very nice start from the Mad Greek, and he is leading Stevie by, I'd say it's about 2-3 seconds, and then in turn also 2-3 seconds down to Wake, myself, Joe of the Fire, and Armored Core still, I think, locked pretty closely in. Of course, it seems that Joe might have fallen off a little bit, and yes, Joe of the Fire has gone into the pits to repair his damage. That's gonna make it a little bit easier for Zephyr. Armored Core also now having suffered some kind of trouble. And still off Apple in the lead in the LMP AM class in that Audi R18 TDI. Very high top speed, but doing a strong job, it must be said, of actually defending his line through against the match that you would think would be somewhat superior. We're just gonna go on board with Nilse as he comes out of the final corner. Just seeming that he loses out there coming down the straight. CJ still leading, Stevie still steadily in second. Might be losing a little bit of time to Wake at the moment. Wake in turn with myself for company very close behind. Zephyr having lost a little bit of time. Same goes for Armored Core, really having lost out there on on those last couple of laps. So Wake having the defensive advantage here, but seemingly it's Mio has the superior pace in the Mazda Tensa. So let's see if it will be possible to find any kind of way through. Does seem to be doing a very good job of just shutting doors here and there. Of course, without being rude in any way. They're a very respectful driver. He's known to be generally Wake, very much a gentleman indeed. Let's go check in with Off Apple. He's now about to make his way through the traffic. And that means he's just gotten past Armored Core and Zephyr, and now still with Nilseman for very close company, the German right behind. It would just take a single advantage. Now there's a fight in front there. It's myself and Wake very much side by side through turns 1 and 2. Now into turn 3 as the two LMPs has to go around the outside first. And then there's an open door on the inside. Swerving, having really to cut through there. Proper multi-class stuff here. The overtaking while battling really never is easy. Now Stevie is next up to get overtaken, with seemingly finding a pretty good place for this. Indeed, no problems there. And Off Apple doing a very nice job there of making his way through the traffic in a swift but safe manner. So let's go back with the battle for third in the GT class, because it's still very close between Wake, CU, and the Master Sensor of myself, DirtenDK. Are you happy now, CJ? It's because CJ has been confused that I just talk about myself as myself, which I don't find that weird, because it is, after all, myself that I'm talking about. But CJ gets confused. So I'll have to mention that it's myself, DirtenDK, fighting for third position. We are on board now, right behind the Belgian Wake CU in that Mercedes AMG GT. Very lovely PlayStation livery also on that one. Tries to get the superior exit there, but it just isn't possible. The defensive driving is very strong there from Wake indeed. It's once more check back, and it's still close between these two. Probably by far actually the closest fight we've had so far in the LMP Pro, or in the LMP AM. Of course it is the LMP AM class here. Don't really remember having seen something this close for this long, at least. Normally when there's a pace difference, it seems that in this class at least, it gets settled pretty quickly. Mika in third position, but he's a bit of a way back, though not more than he could make up over time if he finds his consistency. And Ninja Karma not with the best of luck today, I think. Seems certainly to be quite a bit of distance back at the moment. Let's have a look there. Joe of the Fire is now battling Armored Core, following his pit stop to get the damage repaired. And he is on a charge to make a return. Now Zephyr, it's a very close three-way scrap this for the bottom positions. Zephyr with the inside line, Joe of the Fire. This being an S, it is very much possible for Joe of the Fire to go around the outside in the first of the corners there. A very strong move there, maybe a grip advantage with the Master. Having been in the pits not too long ago. And now Wake, I think I've made a mistake at some point here. I'm a little bit away back from Wake, who's now got some calm, clean air around him. And he in turn is catching Stevie, so I think there might be something about the damage that they received. It's not really his usual pace, and it would be it would make very much sense that the car loses pace once the tires and the mechanical grip start to go away if it is aero damage around the front. So Stevie losing a little bit of time here. still Apple leading a very good job, I must be saying. There it almost goes wide onto the AstroTurf of Death. You just see the stability of that Mazda LM55 Vision Gran Turismo. Really just seems so composed, even when it goes on that very slippery AstroTurf there. It gets the idea that Audi is somewhat more difficult. It is however, it does seem that so far off Apple is rising to the occasion of having been pole setter. He managed to hold on from the hybrid of Mika in third position there on the line, and then he so far has been holding on for almost 15 minutes of racing. So far looking good, but very much still under pressure from Nilseman. I think it is a little bit of a problem for Nilsen that he just can't seem to get the run on off Apple here on the start-finish straight, as Apple dips into the pits for his first stop. So Apple in fresh tires, Mika's also in. Of course, fresh soft tires for him as well. And how's it going with the GTs? It is, of course, still CJ leading strongly. He has really pushed his advantage. Now it's Wake in second position. I think Stevie might have had his pit stop, or might just be that he's had that damage, and I think I have to go and find out. Cannot live with that uncertainty right now. No, that is Stevie on completely fresh rubber. And then the cars of myself, DirtenDK, and Joe of the Fire, and the other Mazda Attentor, they're just swapping places. Stevie really using all of the permitted curb there, as CJ also comes out of the pit. So now Wake actually in front, but only virtually, since he of course still has to do his pit stop. So let's see if Nilse can put in a couple of very fast laps now that Apple gets a Slidey McGee on there. Really gets a bad exit, it looks, and that's gonna cost him some time. And it's not really when he wanted to make that mistake, because right now he wants to be able to make sure that he will return from the pit lane in front of Nilse, of course, when he gets to pit in at some point. Of course. Oh, Nilse getting very wide there. Just super planted, that Mazda. Seems much more planted than, well, any other LMP car, but basically it is also the lowest car I've ever seen, I guess. But a bit surprising to see that it doesn't really seem to lose too much from going wide in places where normally it means certain death, pretty much, for an LMP car. Reigning champion Stevie on board with him as he goes through turns 1, 2, and upcoming 3 here, the left sweeper. A combination of corners that really makes or breaks a lap here around this circuit. Braking as late as humanly possible, then taking advantage of all permitted track whatsoever. Seeming really to have great pace in the Aston at the moment. And Stevie, who I think I've never mentioned before actually, but he is of course also a member of the Aries racing team. So a big shout out to the Aries racing team. A lot of good guys in that community, and a shout out to Aries himself, who also makes some very entertaining content. So just a mention, because we've had several of these drivers taking part in the IGTL races that we've also been broadcasting. As I think we've had Nilse in the pits, it would seem, and he is out right behind off Apple, so it worked for Apple indeed. And now of course Nilse with a little bit of an advantage. on strategy, having had a longer stint, might be able to take advantage of it later on, but so far very, very strong drive from Apple, defending from the very close to be champion that is Nilsemann. So impressive stuff, and could I say this is the best racing we've seen from the series organizer so far this season? Haven't really seen him on his absolute best. This is him on his absolute best, leading the race, and it's a pleasure to see. CJ's still in the lead and still with a healthy advantage, even though he has lost a little bit of time to Stevie. Stevie, who certainly looks to have picked up the pace and is now plowing away, it seems, from me and Joe of the Fire and the two Masters. And in behind, it's of course Zephyr and Armored Core. Right in front of those, it is Wake. He is a little bit alone now, following his pit stop. Very late pit stop for the GT, so it could look like Wake is trying to pull off a two-stop strategy, and it will be really interesting to see if that wins or loses. I definitely think it'll be a hard one to pull off here at Interlagos, a track that is known for really being torturous on the tires. Here is Joe of the Fire in for his second stop. So Tyres, and I expect also to see a little bit of fueling. There it is, a little bit of fueling indeed for Joe of the Fire, and he exits the pit. And he's going to be right around Zephyr. We have also had the first disconnect of the race, it seems, and it is Armored Core. It is Armored Core. Oh, he's had some bad luck the last couple of races, Armored Core. And once more, this just goes on for him. So another bad one, it seems, and a proper disconnect. It wasn't a rage quit or anything. I think we had that discussed. But have seen a bit too many rage quits in this series, I would have to say. And of course, I do encourage all drivers that are watching to keep on fighting. I mean, I had 8 pit stops for damage when we raced at Tokyo Expressway. Still, it's off. Apple now holding off Nilsemann, who's right on his bumper now. Nilsemann, might this be the time to make a move? As Wake is right in front of them. Oh, it's such an art. It's such a difficult one indeed, having to master those overtakes of traffic while also battling someone right behind. It is certainly not something that you just do there. We have Ninja Karma in the pit lane now. Nilsemann very close, but that straight line front of the Audi R18 makes it near impossible, it seems. And I think we need to see a mistake from Mr. Apple before Nilse would have a shot anyways. Also, I've seen that we have been joined by Gugus in chat, and it's some time ago, but I didn't see it before. But hello, Gugus. A warm welcome to you, and it's very nice to see you, of course, as always on the channel. Here's the 2 LMP AM leaders are making their way through my car, or getting past my car anyway on track. Remember when we've seen a long-lasting LMP battle like this take place? It is very, very, very interesting. Seems like Nilsemann has the pace, but he wasn't able to take advantage of it on those couple of extra laps he did. Off Apple came out of the pits in front, and now they're coming up to match. Oh, they're coming up to lap both Stevie and the teammate of Nilsemann, that is Ninja Karma. Oh, and where were Nilse at that moment? So will we see any obstructioning here from Ninja Karma? He isn't exactly quick to get out of the way, is he? Oh, and a little bit of a nudge there even. I think the stewards will have to take a look at this post-race. There might be a penalty incoming for that, I can say. if it turns out that the Race Like Airplanes boys had any kind of communication going on about that situation there, and if Nilsson would have tried to take advantage, although of course he didn't, but it also made it very, very hard for Off Apple to put in any kind of distance. So status quo between those two still. Let's check in with the GT boys. CJ still leading, still looking very steady. He's just put in his best lap of the race so far with a 1:30.1 and follows another 1:30 there. And there we had it. Ninja Karma still standing at the side of the track. And that means that he's also out of today's race. And if they have no chat, then I guess there's nothing to come after there. Still a close fight between these two guys, the two LMP leaders. Then it's CJ, of course, as I mentioned before, leading the GTs in front of Stevie. Now it is myself, DirtenDK, up in third position in that class, in front of Wake, CU, and my teammate Joe of the Fire. And then, of course, it is Zephyr in that final GT spot at the moment. Only 9 cars left running. And still the Nukeshot, R18 of Off Apple, doing a brilliant job of not giving Nilsson any opportunity really of squeezing by. And we have Mika in the pits. Mika's in the pits, and he's exiting the pits on super softs. And he was on the regular softs earlier, so a change in strategy here, close to the midway point for Mika. Might just be feeling that he needed that extra grip. Now Nilsson very close here. It just had a little look like he was just contemplating, am I gonna go for it now? Still too far back, still not able to make up those final yards coming into turns 1 and 2. And in turn, doesn't seem like the Master just has the grunt to be able to do anything about that Audi. Certainly a close battle anyway, this. And if you were wondering how we could be so active in chat and talk so much here at the same time, I think it is, of course, the Smooth Boy who's joined us in the chat. And if he wants me to keep on commentating the racing, I'd advise him not to post in such funny jokes as the one just did there. Anyway, still strong work from Off Apple. Still CJ leading, Stevie and both the Mazdas right behind. Just as I say that, Wake has actually made his way past Joe of the Fire. And that was, of course, a couple of laps ago following the pit stop of Joe before. Well, let's jump back to this one. It's just going to be a 2-horse race that we're watching, but it is damn interesting as Nilsson just seems to be getting a little bit closer this time. Apple has to go defensive, has to block off the inside, and does so with no reluctance whatsoever. Nilsson. Here we go on board with the German. Oh, he goes wide, he goes deep into that sweeper. And loses a little bit of time there. Apple, however, also missing an apex. And then it's status quo once more. And no way past there for Nilsson as he gets a superior exit. It's really visible that the Mazda is the superior car of the two through the middle sector here of the track. But not really able to find any way through there. Almost contact between the two. And now Nilsson just trying his best to line it up. But you just see the straight line grunt of the Audi in front. As I've mentioned on before already, it does seem to be making it very, very difficult indeed. CJ is looking very smooth today, actually very clean and consistent. It's been looking like a walk in the park for him all race so far, as we have reached the half the race gone marker. Stevie, reigning champion, still in second position, and Joe of the Fire with him down in fourth. It's a very good position actually for Stevie, as Stevie pits in. So pit stop time for Stevie, and it's gonna be tires and fuel, of course, for him. And my call is that he'll be staying on the super softs. I would not be surprised to see this whatsoever. It'll be interesting to see how he comes out compared to Joe of the Fire. Meanwhile, I also was in the pits on the last lap, and that means that, of course, Joe is passed on that account. But Joe on not exactly on fresh rubbers, and with Stevie catching, you would expect Joe to have a hard time actually having to defend there. It's still going on, the battle, of course. I was just about to say that let's check in with the LMP battle, because I don't really dare looking away for too long. It must be a very sweaty Apple in that car at the moment. I call that sweaty hands on the DS4. Oh, very close there, Nilse. But Apple wisely shuts off the inside line there, forcing Nilse to go for the cutback here. But as we swing left instantly, I don't think there's space for an actual overtake here. Nope. Once more, Nilsen's confined to actually having to look for the superior exit. And until he finds that, I think he'll find it very hard to get past the car off Apple. Now we have CJ in the pits. He's just coming out right behind Wake. So as we saw before with the skewer in, or the slight skewering of stints for Wake on his two-stop strategy, that leaves him just in front of CJ. It'll be interesting to see if CJ is just going to be able to make his way through quickly. No doubt that the Belgian will try to slow down the Greek, as it is just a battle for track position. Yeah. Meanwhile, in the LMP field, it's really close. It's still really close. It's been close since the flag was dropped, and it's still off Apple, just holding off Nilsen, and there he has to close off the inside line, and he does so. He's putting up a brave fight off Apple. I must say, inspiring to watch. Shuts Nilsen out the outside here. Looked like Apple was carrying a bit too much speed, but in turn he actually wasn't. And normally in this kind of situation, with just around half an hour of racing left, I'd say no way he's gonna make it to the line, but he's been defending so well for the best part of half an hour already, so there isn't really nothing to say that he wouldn't be able to just keep up this iron defense for another 30 minutes and claim the victory. We'll have to see if it's possible. Just checking in with the GTs now. CJ's having made his way past Wake, and Joe of the Fire still right in front of Stevie. Stevie, as you can see, is catching up. And the two championship combatants are now once more locked in a close battle. Of course, Joe of the Fire also on somewhat changed strategy and sub-optimal strategy, if you may. after having too much damage for him to continue with it for the entirety of his first stint. And we'll see if he can make amends from that for some kind of strong comeback here come the end of the race. 25 minutes remaining, and now with the Aston in the slipstream, it might be very difficult for Joe of the Fire. Oh, and we have Nilseman! We have the overtake having taken place and of course missing it. Oh! Oh, off Apple! A desperate move and then going a little bit deep into turns 1 and 2. And that'll be interesting to see if Nilse can actually break the slipstream and pull away. So I'd like to say F's out if he doesn't get the position back at least somewhat soon. It seems to be that Nilseman is somewhat faster. There's a battle going on with Stevie on the outside of Joe of the Fire. Just as the two LMPs comes up to lap, this is edge of the seat stop, and there's contact between Stevie and Nilse. Contact between Stevie and Nilse might be damaged. Let's just go and check that out very quickly. No damage for Nilse indeed. Let's have a look with Stevie. There's no damage either for him. So good on both drivers there that little punt didn't give any greater consequences. So I'll have to ask you to, how did the move happen? Because we missed it. Can you please explain it to us in chat? Because I want to know. It's been such a great battle, but it also really is obvious that the pace of that Mazda is superior, at least for the time being, with Off-Apple making his way through traffic and now also dipping into the pits. It could be because of those tires. And also he is very low on fuel. Nilseman also into the pits, but with a lot more fuel left at the moment. And Wake is in as well on Super Soft. That's for his last scheduled stop. That'll be a very, very long last stint of 23 minutes for him. I'd like to see him pulling that off. I think it's going to be a difficult one, but I salute Wake for trying the two-stop on the Super Softs. So Wake is out. He's out in front of Zephyr, it seems, but... Or did Zephyr also pass Wake here on the exit? He certainly did. No, he didn't. Sometimes those graphics just do confuse me. Mika's in the pits here. And will of course claim third if he can just finish the race. That should be... No, he's not here watching today, but he'll be happy for the podium. Nonetheless, the Dutchman seems to be a very emotional character at times, but also guy that you find hard not to like. Stevie still second, having gotten clear of Joe of the Fire and that squabble from the top LMP cars. He's now clear to catch, or to try and catch CJ in front, but it seems to be a very, very difficult job today. CJ haven't gotten the easiest of races out of all the championship contenders, I might just say, I think, without saying too much. Not that it's easy being CJ, but just take a playthrough of GTA San Andreas. You'll know what I'm talking about. Anyways, he is leading here today, and he's doing a fine job. Anyway, Joe of the Fire up into third position in class. That's a strong one. Now the Masters third and fourth, with Wake in fifth position. And Zephyr still fifth, of course. Nilse, finally, can we say that? Finally in the lead. It looked like it had been a long time coming. Coming back up to lap Stevie once more. Let's see if they can get it done a little bit cleaner this time. Oh, Nilse. I don't really think the good Stevie was expecting anyone to come through in that kind of gap there, but someone did come through. It was a very low Mazda. It was a screaming rotary engine, and they did manage to pull it off without any fatal consequences. But could imagine it was a big scare. Oh, and Apple getting held up in traffic now. Behind Joe of the Fire, I think it is. It is indeed the car of Joe of the Fire. A little bit of trouble there for Apple. So it looks like he's gonna have to settle for second place. It's going well. I need a sip of water, but it seems like Apple is gonna have to settle for second place today. Oh, it gets a big slide on through turn 1. So 20 minutes of racing remaining, and already the gap between Nilsson and Off Apple, first and second in the LMP-AM class, has really just grown quite substantially over the last couple of laps. Of course, we have had both of the drivers pitting in, and I would suspect that some of the difference was also made on that pit stop, seeing that how Nils had a lot less fueling to do, the refueling, or in turn put in a bit more of a simple way. He had more fuel in his car. Anyway, strong game there on Nilsson, and as I have mentioned before, during this season, as we've seen these dominant displays in the LMP AM field, and it's both in both AM fields, both the GT AM and the LMP AM fields. I'd say Nilsson is certainly looking like he's getting moved up into the pro split next season. Of course, nothing is certain yet, but it would look to make very good sense. So Joe of the Fire and myself still quite close. Joe of the Fire pitting in for what could be, what probably will be his final pit stop. So also a long stint to be done there for Joe. If you consider a regular stint on the Supersoft to be around 15 minutes, still looking good for Nilsson. And in turn also for the GT Pro leader CJ, who has just seemed to be have been able to stay clear of any kind of major squabblings here. Of course, did have a little bit of an infight, but it only seemed to last a single lap. The one he had with Wake, as he came out behind Wake, or just behind Wake, after a pit round. Wake now all the way back in 4th position, with Joe of the Fire 5th. But mind you, Joe now being able to put in some kind of undercut perhaps on both myself in 3rd position and Joe, or of course Wake in 4th. And that'll be interesting to see if that'll be possible. Wake, of course, having had his final pit stop as well. So those two are just on a battle for track position at the moment. And we'll be sure to be keeping an eye on that, as I will be needing to pit in one more time still. Oh, it just seemed to go quite wide there through turn 1 as well. So maybe already at this point quite dead rubber on those 4 wheels. I would certainly expect it to be that way. It's Mika making his way around. So finally, you could say, the last of the squabbling dying out, at least for the time being. At the moment, it is quite steady all the way through the both of the fields. And it'll also be interesting to see whether I can be able to make my way out of the pits in front of Wake CU when I get in, and that's the question, is if I do it this lap or the following one. Seems like it would be a wise decision just to get it done as quickly as possible. The sound of dreadful understeer coming into the final turn. So let's see, is this the time? It certainly is. So pit stop for me this time around. And of course that means fresh rubber and a little bit of fuel in the tank. And then we're of course looking for Wake CU. I think he's passing just around there. Joe of the Fire also close. And then we're going to be looking at the exit next time around. Wake is going to be in front. He's going to be in front by quite some time. Even Joe of the Fire is also going to get through on his teammate here. So Joe of the Fire moving up into fourth position in class now, chasing Wake in third. And mind you that Joe is on a little bit fresher rubber than Wake. He's done about 4 minutes of driving. 4 minutes less than Joe of the Fire, or of course 4 minutes more. That is, I apologize the confusion there. Wake has done 4 minutes more on his tire than Joe of the Fire, so I would expect Joe to have some kind of advantage. And Joe of the Fire right now isn't really looking to conserve his tires. It seems he's really pushing. He is sliding all over the place, but does it with some kind of pace, it seems. Going quite strongly at the moment. Now Stevie is into the pits. And in turn, it'll also be interesting to see where he comes out. Of course, fresh tires and rubber. Fresh tires and rubber. That sounded weird. No, fresh tires and fuel, of course, for Stevie is what I meant to say. Will Joe of the Fire make his way through? Will I make my way through? I don't think so. I think it'll be status quo for Stevie as he comes out. Still second position in front of Wake, Joe of the Fire and myself. And comfortably so, even. Those masters, though, are getting bigger in the mirrors of Wake CU. Let's go on board with the Belgian. Let's get a better picture of how his car behaves at this point. And a warm welcome to Armored Core. Nice to see you in the chat, mate. And glad that you could join us. And of course, sad though to see that you once more disconnected from the race. Certainly hasn't been your most lucky period here as of late. CJ's in for his last pit stop now. And as it is, he is just coming out. And with 52% of fuel to do just about 12 minutes of driving, I think he is quite on the safe side, but with a nice advantage. He doesn't need to stress it in any way. And that's, of course, nice for him. He makes his way out. Now we go on board with Joe of the Fire, who is really closing up onto Wake CU, who's right in front. All of a sudden, last time we had a look, he was, he's been picking off something like 2 seconds, I think, on the last lap. That's been going very quickly indeed. We have a look with the rearwards facing camera from that Mercedes of Wake, as Wake goes very wide there. It seems those tires are already suffering, and that makes it a very easy pass for the witty professor, making his way up into the podium spots in the GT Pro class. No chance there really for Wake to defend. So let's have a look at Zephyr and that Nukeshot set for the BMW. Hadn't had too much of a look at him. And certainly we also were expecting a little bit of a stronger performance. Maybe, I don't think it was Zephyr's lucky day today, but of course be watchful come the next couple of races, because from the series we've been racing with him so far, we know that he is on his best pace. He is certainly a pacey gentleman indeed. Nilseman, after that very lengthy battle with Off-Apple, is finally with a lot of clear space in front. And now also with something that looks to be 15 or 20 seconds in front. So he's really pushed that advantage as Off-Apple make his way through traffic. And it is turn now me closing up onto Wake CU in front with just around 10 minutes of racing left. Now we have Mika in for a late pit stop as he rejoins. Fresh super softs for him. Maybe he'll be going for that fastest lap. And just, I'm sure that Aris is right, because I think CJ has a hold of this one. And that will, of course, bring him somewhat closer to the driver's title. And it will certainly let him back in the fight, to say the least. There will be 3 drivers very close. So really, for the last 2 rounds at Blue Moon Bay, and then, of course, at La Sarthe, it's going to be super interesting to see. And the last 2 tracks also being high-speed tracks, you'd expect the Toyota FG1 to have a very strong pace around there. But also the Aston and the Mazda Tensa are also both very strong in that respect. Now it's myself and Wake CU really closely intertwined in a battle for 4th position. A little bit of a flashing there. We see the Belgian go defensive. And I'm on the outside, aiming for the cutback. Oh, a little bit of a contact there. And I just do the gentlemanly thing and hold off, at least for just until I see just how much the Mercedes of Wake is plowing on with no grip whatsoever from very dead tires. And I say thank you very much, sir. And I'll take that 4th position. And look, I actually thought that Wake has had damage, but he didn't. It was just that much of a pace difference in the tires. So a brave strategy to go for the 2-stop on those super softs for Wake CU in the end. Now with 7.5 minutes of racing remaining, we are really getting close to the final moments of this race. It is still Nilsemann strongly leading the LMP AM class, as he was behind off Apple, very closely behind indeed, for just about 35 minutes. Those two were entangled in a close battle. And it was just absolutely impossible, it seemed, for Nilse to really get a move done. And as he got it done, there was just no looking back, and he has certainly been on his pace ever since. He's been pulling away from Abel, and the 2 Audis are now confined to the lower steps on the podium, with off Apple in 2nd position and Mika in 3rd. And in the GT class, it's been smooth sailing so far all the way through for CJ, who is leading the class with a healthy advantage down to reigning champion Stevie, and Joe of the Fire, the championship leader, in 3rd position. And it is actually the exact reverse of the top 3 of the standings at the moment, being that Joe of the Fire is the points leader in front of Stevie and then CJ. So we'll have a general closing in of the point standing with the GT3 Pro drivers field. As I mentioned before, coming into those final 2 rounds of racing over the next month's time, it's going to be really interesting to see who will snatch that title after a championship that's been very, very long indeed. 20 weeks as each round, as you might know. At this point, each round is, of course, 2 weeks long. To have both splits racing and to have all the drivers racing in both classes is, of course, another way to put it. Strong job there from CJ anyways. Stevie got a bit unlucky there through turn 1, and you might just think what could have been had he had a bit more luck with this race. He's also been caught up in more battling, and he's been a little bit more unlucky, as far as we've seen at least, with the traffic as well, being held up on a couple of occasions with that battle for the lead, the lengthy LMP battle between off Abel and Nilse. So of course, all these things bearing in mind, I think 2nd place is not the worst of results for Stevie. Of course, 2nd place isn't secured yet. He needs to get that Aston around for 5 more minutes until he can finally cross the line. So now Apple's in the pits. That's a very late pit stop. A That might be just to have a go for the fastest lap. I think it is. Apple putting on super softs and going for fastest lap here. And that is, of course, also in terms a resignation in the battle for first position, giving Nils those extra seconds. And now he's going to see if he can get a flying lap in within the last couple of laps here on low fuel indeed as well. Just mentioning before with Zephyr that it's of course very nice to have a newcomer to the series and to have a new face racing, albeit one that we've been racing in some of the other series, and albeit even more when it's a both clean and a fast guy like Zephyr. So of course a very warm, officially a very warm welcome to the Nukeshot Endurance Series. Wake, see you in that AMG Mercedes. I think we're in for some big understeer as he's coming up towards that right-hand sweeper that is turn 5. Oh, just sailing wide. The Mercedes. Wake really suffering there indeed. Now one guy who certainly wasn't lucky today is of course Joe of the Fire, who seemed to be getting, of all those who were involved in that turn 1 incident, he seemed to be the worst off and seemed to be the only one who also had to pit. And you saw the other drivers around him really making up time on him, and he really lost out due to that. And securing third position is about the best he could make of it, I think, even though he certainly will be disappointed, especially since it does mean that he's opening the door for his championship rivals to get back at him. And in turn, it has been a while since we've seen Joe of the Fire picking up a win in the GTM class here, even though he has been perhaps the most consistent driver this season, the witty professor. Now, mind you that Joe, of course, this last stint is looking like it's becoming very long for him too, because he seems to be losing quite much time at the moment. And it might in turn actually be team orders coming in. Just a couple of laps remaining, 1.5 lap, I think, and that gap is not huge. It is there, but it's certainly not huge. But I think Joe of the Fire is pretty secure in that third place. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. So Nilseman, I think it might be the final lap. Oh, of course not, because there's still a minute remaining. So it's going to be the final lap for Nilseman now, of course. He is upon the final lap. And a very strong race from the German once more, really showing that he is, by all means, the strongest driver of the AM field. Being dominant in both classes, being able to master both the Corvette and this Mazda LM55 over the course of a season, or at least so far. And he's done it once more today with a very strong display. And CJ in turn also, he's just gonna make the final lap, it seems. He gets lapped by Mika right there. Mika also gets to do the same amount of laps as the leading two LMP cars. So now CJ on his final lap. Stevie in turn is now crossing the line. And he is the first to finish, but he is not the one to win the class. That goes to CJ now, of course. That is given. So Stevie home for second position. Joe of the Fire third with teammate, myself, DirtenDK in fourth. And then Zephyr 5th in class, and I think a late disconnect from Wake there. And that's right, he had some problems with his PSN account or something, as far as I recall, and was all of a sudden out of it. Nilsson now having crossed the line to take the victory, and off Apple. However, setting the fastest lap towards the end of the race, I think. And he did just do that with a 1:19.4. So that's some kind of consolidation, I think, of his level, and also maybe just a little bit of a band-aid on the wound now that he didn't win the race today. Mika takes 3rd position in the LMP aim field, 3rd out of only 3 finishers, and then of course it is CJ winning in the GT Pros, and he can really take it easy there as he comes across the line to take a very, very, very strong victory indeed. CJ there pretty much leading from lights to flag, and that's it's always a difficult one. Yeah, and a big F out for Wake there in the end, but of course he will get his points being so close to finishing the race. That in turn concludes the Interlagos rounds here in the NES. A big congratulations once more to Nilse and CJ, our 2 winners for today. And as I've mentioned on a couple of occasions, it'll be really close with the championship standings, the driver standings in the GT3 Pro field. So the last 2 races in that class is gonna be hair-raisingly exciting, I think. Especially since Blue Moon Bay, well, that's very much untested ground for multi-class micro-endurance racing, or whatever you'd call it. I haven't seen anyone do it yet, and it, of course, it's a track that has a little bit of reminiscence to Daytona, with the oval and infield layout. And then of course for the last round of racing we do have the legendary Le Mans circuit, the Circuit de la Sarthe, and that is that never fails to provide us with some excellent racing. I think it will very much do so when we get to the deciding rounds of this championship. Of course, with the TSR multi-GT having ended, we also don't have anything to show you on Wednesdays. So until now, it'll actually be a whole week, or almost a week, because of course we'll be back this coming Monday with the first of the 2 races from Blue Moon Bay. Of course, the 2 NES races that will be held there. The only 2 races in the NES calendar to be held on American soil, except of course for Interlagos. So that's nice when you can contradict yourself. Anyways, thank you to everyone for tuning in today. We've had a very lively chat. Actually, it's been very nice to see, and thank you so much for all your activity. We greatly appreciate it, and it in turn makes it all the more fun doing these races. Of course, we hope that you've enjoyed the show today, and of course thank you to all the drivers who gave us such a great show today. Apple and Nilsson, very, very nice battling there. And I think with that said, I think all that's left to say is that of course we'll see you next week, and until then, take care, have fun, and bye bye.